Hello everybody and welcome to Blossom Street, just around the corner from York Railway Station. You guys can probably guess why I'm here. It's easier to get to from my hotel than York Railway Station itself. Anyway, today I will not be heading on this Optare Metro Decker on the York Local Service 3, though I wouldn't mind that because I'm starting to quite like the Optare Metro Deckers after spending a few days in York. But rather, I'm going to be catching the Coastliner 840 service from here all the way to Whitby via Moulton, Pickering and Thornton Le Dale, as well as the stunning Yorkshire moors. This service a few years ago, actually it might have been 9 or 10 years ago by now, was voted the most scenic bus service in the UK, or at least in Britain. Now I'm not too sure if I agree with that, especially since the Exmoor Coaster started up. That's also pretty scenic, and I'm fairly certain I've also been on other very scenic and lesser known bus services across the UK. It was certainly up there with the Exmoor Coaster and other scenic bus services, especially ones in Wales. Anyway, here's my Coastliner bus arriving, which was one of the many Volvo B5TL Rotor Gemini 3s in the Transdev Coastliner fleet. Here I am departing Blossom Street, heading into York City Centre. After taking an absolute age to get through York City Centre, this bus would head out towards Moulton, Pickering, Thornton Le Dale, and then continue on to the lesser used section or the lesser served section of the route, which heads through Goathland and heads into Whitby. For some reason there is only an hourly service as far as Thornton Le Dale, where most of the buses return and head back towards Moulton, York and Leeds, with only a handful of bus services such as this one, which believe it or not was the first bus of the day and didn't get into Whitby until 10:38, actually continue on past Thornton Le Dale towards Whitby. Anyway, here I am taking an absolute age to get through York City Centre. The bus makes quite a few stops, including at the railway station and the Stone Bow.
This is the main stop for the shops, the Shambles and York Minster. Please stay on the bus for Moulton, Pickering, Thornton Le Dale and Whitby. And thanks for using Coastliner.
Here I am passing through the very nice looking village of Stockton-on-the-Forest. This is the first village after leaving York City Centre and the suburbs. Here I am passing through Moulton Village Centre. Moulton looked like quite a nice and a very upper class village, or is it a town? However, the buses did struggle to get through a lot of the streets, especially heading to and from the bus and railway interchange.
Bus station. This bus now continues to Whitby station.
Here I am arriving into Moulton bus station. which is pretty much on the side of the Moulton bus depot, mainly used by Transdev to store their coastliner vehicles, and is located just across the road from Moulton railway station, which, to be honest, is kind of hidden out the way. I'm not saying that the bus station isn't, it's quite a way out of the village centre, but the railway station, apart from the bars and arrows sign, is not really very obvious. I reckon you'd miss it if you didn't know it was there, but I could be wrong, I'm not a local here in Moulton. Anyway, after sitting here for a couple minutes and still running behind schedule, here I am leaving Moulton, heading towards Pickering. After that, the bus will continue on to Thornton Le Dale and eventually Whitby. The bus is running about 10 minutes late now, and the driver was actually having to refuse passengers beyond this point because the bus was getting extremely busy, and I think down the bottom it might have even been standing room only, which would not be very good if you were riding on this bus through the Yorkshire moors. Oh wait, I think a lot of people were. Yeah, I see that, yeah. That's a roller coaster, isn't it? As I arrive into Pickering, let's take a look at the inside of this Volvo B5TL. The seat and the legroom was very nice, the seat was quite comfortable, and I only got a numb bum after about 2.5 hours on this bus, so that was actually quite good going. As well as that, the lighting inside the bus is quite nice, and it actually has some natural light thanks to the sky roof that is located on the roof of the upper deck of the bus. As well as that, just like with most Transdev businesses, or most Transdev companies I should say, the branding is absolutely on point, and the branding is absolutely superb. And if I ever go into the transport industry, I would love to be the person that designs all of this branding. Honestly, I actually really like it, and I reckon I would do a pretty decent job at doing the same thing. Transdev have it down to a fine art. Anyway, here I am leaving Pickering, where you can change for the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, which is a very famous heritage railway and trundles its way through the North Yorkshire Moors, heading towards Goathland, Rosemont and eventually Whitby, but only certain trains head beyond whatever it is, Rosemont. There we go. Anyway, here I am at Thornton Le Dale. I waffled so much, there was no break between Pickering and Thornton Le Dale. This is where the hourly bus service ends, and where the 2 hourly services continue on to Goathland and Whitby. Here, a number of passengers got refused, however I'm unsure if they headed back to Leeds or York, or just ended up giving up and going home, or waiting 2 hours for the next bus. That is also an option, which I wouldn't recommend doing if I'm being honest. About 5 minutes, or maybe 10, after leaving Thornton Le Dale, here I am passing through the North Yorkshire Moors. This is the main reason why the Coastliner 840 to Whitby, not the 843 to Scarborough, earns the title of one of Britain's, and a few years ago, Britain's most scenic bus route. And whilst I'm pretty sure there are more scenic and more hidden bus routes out there, especially across the UK, I think this bus route is honestly very scenic and very beautiful, and although it perhaps isn't the most scenic, it is certainly well worth the wait, especially if you're travelling from York. If you're travelling from Whitby, well, it's the first thing you bloody come across. As I head further into the North Yorkshire moors, I'm quite glad I chose the bus. Not only because of the lovely scenery, which I probably would have missed out, or mostly missed out, by taking the train, but also because the route the bus takes, although it is quite a long one, is much better than the route that the train takes, and the train takes just as long from York to get to Whitby. And there are possibly even less trains to Whitby than there are buses from York and Moulton. That is only because most of the buses terminate at Thornton le Dale though. If I was taking the train from York, I'd have to take a Transpennine train to Middlesbrough and then change onto a Whitby service, and most of the trains from Middlesbrough only go part of the way down the line. I can't remember where they terminate, I think it might be Nunthorpe, but very few of the trains actually terminate and start at Whitby. For example, when I got to Whitby later on, I had a look at around midday, about 12 o'clock, when the next train back to Middlesbrough was, just because I knew the service was pretty bad anyway. The next train wasn't until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. How much of a stupid service is that? Especially since the weather's nice and it's the Easter holidays. I think Whitby would be very popular, and I mean it was, but I think it would be very popular even if it was raining. Anyway, here I am exiting the North Yorkshire moors and travelling across the North Yorkshire Moors Railway here at Goathland. Now, some of you may know this, and I'm pretty sure it's Goathland Station on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, but I could be wrong, it could have been another station on the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, but I'm pretty sure Goathland Station was used in Harry Potter to film scenes at the Hogsmeade Station, because of course Hogsmeade doesn't actually exist, but most people think it's a station up in Scotland, as that's supposed to be where the railway is based, at least in that part of the Harry Potter movie or story or whatever you want to call it. However, it's actually filmed at Goathland Station, right in the heart of the North Yorkshire Moors. After passing through Goathland and Russwarp, I think that's how you pronounce it, but I could be wrong, here I am arriving into Whitby town centre, after taking an absolute age to get through the town outskirts as there was a massive traffic jam. The bus here drops you off at Whitby Boys, which is located right across the road, pretty much opposite Whitby bus station. Now from here onwards, I will take another bus to Scarborough, but first, I had a few hours in Whitby, which I would take to travel on the Whitby Town Tour. This is operated by Coastal and Country Coaches and uses a fleet of 3 or 4, but I think it's 3, lovely Volvo B70L Claxton President. The one I had sounded very nice, however, as you would have seen in those couple of clips, I saw Whitby railway station with absolutely no trains and no sign of life at all, and one of the Arriva Volvo B8RLE MCV Aurors, which are used on these services between Whitby and Middlesbrough, which operate via Saltburn. Anyway, here I am leaving Whitby Co-op. For some reason this bus tour doesn't leave from the bus station but the co-op nearby, and this tour would usually take about an hour, but this is one of the services that has a break at Whitby Abbey.
As we turn right on the roundabout, you'll see the award-winning Trench's Seafood Restaurant, one of over 50 established right is Whitby's Swing Bridge. This one was opened in 1909 and replaced the original one of 1835 because the steel got a bit steepness. The other side of the river is Whitby's lifeboat station. The white identification numbers on the lifeboat contain the names of over 10,000 donors' loved ones. Just ahead of us lies Marine Parade, which was built by the Victorians so that they could promenade along the water's edge. In earlier times, they would have had to walk up Haggers Gate, which is Norse and twisted road. On the left, as we turn into narrow Haggers Gate, look out for the large Georgian mansion built in 1817 for the Reynolds family. Like many of the houses around here, it was built on sandbank, supported by pines. It became a mission to seamen in 1877. This is the last bus of the day and will terminate at Langmore Road and Co-op stop. Please make sure you take all your belongings with you. Just ahead on the right you can see the roof of Whitby Pavilion. The theatre, Saloon, as it was first named, was built by Sir George Eliot around 1880 on land known as the West Cliff Estate. After Whitby's only theatre, the Theatre Royal, located in the town centre, burned down in 1823. As we set off, we'll go on the exotically named Khyber Pass, a road forged into the hillside in 1838 by the railway king George Hudson. Following the decline of the whaling industry in the early 1800s, Hudson planned to revitalise Whitby as a seaside resort. He began by buying up all the land on the West Cliff and used the rail pass to bring materials. When the building work was finished, it provided a good route down to the town. The La Rosa Hotel on the left has a blue plaque explaining that Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice in Wonderland and Alice Thrushton, was a politician and rail financier and controlled much of the national rail network. Just ahead on the right you can see the roof of Whitby Pavilion. The theatre, Saloon, as it was first named, was built by Sir George Eliot around 1880 on land known as the West Cliff Estate. After Whitby's only theatre, the Theatre Royal, located near the town centre, burned down in 1823. To the left is Whitby's Royal Bath Somerset.
Here I'm going past Whitby's version of the Bath Crescent, obviously in Bath in Somerset. Now, the reason why it's only half a present or a full present is because the person who was financing the whole thing, I can't remember his name, ended up going bankrupt and fleeing to another country so he didn't get arrested. I find that quite amusing, and although it's only a half crescent, it looks extremely nice and is on par with the bigger one in Bath.
Electricity. Originally, it was a hotel with a proper Victorian ballroom. The majority of the building has since been converted for accommodation. Looking down to the far end of Ladysmith Avenue on the right is the grandstand of Whitby Town Football Club, which is also known as the Seasiders. The Saxonville Hotel was the childhood home of Margaret Storm Jameson, who was an English journalist, author, and the president of English PEN, the world's oldest human rights organisation. Just before his death, on the left is Whitby's floral clock, which was installed in 1953 to mark the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. After years of neglect, the clock was reinstated in 2006 by the Friends of Cannon Park. In the bottom left corner of Cannon Park is a pathway that depicts plants and fossils from the Jurassic period, around 150 to 200 million years ago. There's also a life-size replica of the first ever gharial. There's a little road leading to a tunnel through which is an area once known for its sail-making. As we head over Prospect Hill, passengers upstairs need to be aware of low and overhanging trees. Before Whitby developed, owners of large houses on the right would have enjoyed an excellent view or prospect of Whitby. In several gardens on the right before the junction, you can see spiky Chilean pine trees, which are more commonly known as monkey puzzle. The mineral jet, which comes from the fossilized remains of the tree, was the center of a big industry in Whitby in the 19th century.
As we cross the bridge, here you get a nice view along Whitby Harbour and the town centre, as well as the main line coming in from Goathland, Nunthorpe and Middlesbrough. As well as this, on some days you'll be lucky enough to see a heritage train operated by the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, which joins the main line at Rosemont. Here I am arriving at Whitby Abbey. Here the driver had to take a 40-minute legal break, so although I did get one or two pictures of the Whitby Abbey itself, I didn't find it that interesting. The view across to the water and into the ocean was actually quite interesting though, and it was quite spooky, especially with all of these gravestones in the way. Anyway, on the return journey, which was much shorter as this tour is a circular, heading back into Whitby town centre, I decided to sit on the lower level and get a nice sound, you get what I mean. I decided to sit right next to the engine.
The stone pillar was originally considered to be the remains of a cross associated with the abbey. However, following the excavation of what is thought to be a Saxon settlement here, it's now believed to be a market cross from that era.
He said that he's going to have his break when he gets up here.
In the early hours of the 30th of October 1914, the hospital ship broke pillar, struck rocks and sunk with fame just south of Whitby. What happened next was one of the most challenging rescue operations in history. Along the coast near Whitby, people are still finding Whitby jet, one of the earliest gemstones used to create artifacts and items of jewelry. The jet found is approximately 192 million years old. Jet has been used in Britain since the Neolithic period and was fashionable until the end of Roman Britain. It leads all the way to the bottom of the Maracaibo Steps.
As I pass Whitby bus station on my return journey into the town centre, you can see a few Arriva buses, including a Volvo B90L Gemini 2 and a Volvo B8 RLE LCV Aurora. Anyway, after passing the beautiful but very underused Whitby railway station, here I am pulling back into Whitby Co-op. After having some fish and chips, it was time to head down the coast on the X94 to just outside of Scarborough.
Next to the water is the original Endeavour Wharf. It was constructed in 1964 when the cargo trade, timber, steel and other commodities from the continental ports was an important harbour activity. As this trade increased, the wharf was no longer needed. Coming up on the left across the canal, the public toilet building was designed to resemble an upturned hull of a wooden boat previously built in Whitby. A little beyond the building, you can catch a glimpse of a wooden sculpture of two men building a boat.
Here is my Arriva bus arriving into Whitby bus station to take me down the coast on the X94 to the outskirts of Scarborough. This was a VDL SB200 Wright Pulsar 2. This was my first time on a Pulsar 2 and I quite liked the bus, even though it was absolutely knackered. although it did have some very interesting amenities, including a destination screen on the inside, which although is expected on modern day vehicles, I wasn't expecting from a Riva, especially in the northeast. And as well as that, it had full-on like power outlets, whatever you want to call them, like you'd get in your kitchen at home rather than on a bus, which most modern day buses, even the modern day electric buses from ADL, Wrightbus and the likes of Yutong and BYD, which just have USB-A and USB-C ports, not full-on outlets. Anyway, needless to say, the outlets didn't work, but it was a quite interesting feature, especially from a Riva of all operators. Anyway, I'm going to be taking this, and I was quite pleased to say this bus was bang on time and departed at 14:07, just down the coast to the outskirts of Scarborough at Peaceholm Gap. Like I said a minute ago, I was quite pleased to see this bus depart Whitby bus station bang on time, considering the X93 before this, which was supposed to depart half an hour earlier at 13:37, ended up departing nearly 20 minutes late.
That's like what I do. I think it's just the whole body was getting way too big. You can imagine. It looked so big. It was in front of me. I was trying to speed it.
Here I'm arriving at Peaceholm Gap. Here I'd make the short walk across to the bus stop where the open toppers depart from. Here goes that VDL SB 200 Wright Pulsar 2 I was travelling on, which is wearing the Arriva Sapphire livery, though it wasn't that great to be honest, heading into Scarborough Town Centre near the railway station. Here I am making the swift walk from the main Arriva bus stop where the bus drops off at Peaceholm Gap to where the open toppers pick up just outside Peaceholm Park. The first open topper I would travel on is operated by Shoreline Sun Cruisers. Now for years and years and years there has been rivalry here, not just on the open toppers but on ordinary services between Shoreline and East Yorkshire. Both services down the coast used to be numbered 109, but it seems that since East Yorkshire has been taken over by Go Ahead Group a few years ago, the East Yorkshire service has now been renumbered the 99 and has been rebranded the Beachcomber. But first of all, I was taking a ride on the traditional 109 operated by Shoreline Sun Cruisers. Pretty much all the buses operated by Shoreline Sun Cruisers on this service, at least on the day I was filming, were Dennis Trident Paxton President, which was just lovely to see. More than one Dennis Trident in public service, in full operation, and by the looks of it, day after day, at least in the summer months. I'm going to be taking this down to the spa through Scarborough Town Centre.
gold and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Here I am now at the Spar, where you can see two Shoreline Sun Cruisers, Dennis Trident, Paxton Presidents together. Now I'm not sure what happened here, because obviously there's something going on with the timetable, with two arriving within seconds of each other, to be honest. Now I'm not too sure who the vehicle that I was on used to be operated by, unless it was always Shoreline, but I doubt it. But the second vehicle, the one right here, used to be operated by Lothian buses. As you can see, it's still wearing their livery, just with Shoreline Sun Cruisers badges on them. Now, like I said, I'm not too sure what was going on with the timetable, because I know when East Yorkshire was an independent bus operator, there used to be a coordinated timetable, and an argument would kick off between the two companies even if one of the buses departed 10 seconds behind schedule. It was complete madness. Now, I'm not too sure, and the 109 timetable isn't even available on bus times, and on the Shoreline Sun Cruisers website it just says buses run every couple of minutes. On the day I was filming, I think it was every 12, but I could be wrong. Anyway, here is the much more professionally branded Beachcomber bus, which is operated by East Yorkshire and numbered the 99, but it does the exact same routes. I want to say this bus was also ex-Lothian, but I could be wrong. This was a Volvo B70L Right Eclipse Gemini and was much quieter than all of the Shoreline buses we passed en route. I would only be taking this back into Scarborough Town Centre. Now, although Shoreline Sun Cruisers operate the 109 in competition with the 99 Beachcomber service operated by East Yorkshire, and therefore the Shoreline prices are £1 cheaper than the East Yorkshire fares on the Beachcomber, they also operate one other service in competition and used to operate a few more Scarborough Town services in competition with East Yorkshire. In the school holidays, Shoreline Sun Cruisers operate the Coast Cruiser, and on regular days operate the 555, which operates in competition with the East Yorkshire Coaster, but only on the section between Scarborough and Filey. However, Shoreline Sun Cruisers also used to operate the 333 Scarborough Town service and the 777 Scarborough Town service, with the 777 operating in competition with the East Yorkshire 7 services, branded as the Scarborough Locals. I meant Scarborough Locals, you knew what I meant. I'm not too sure what happened to the 333 and 777, since these have disappeared since last time I checked on Shoreline Sun Cruisers website and on bus time. At least, well, up until recently. Anyways, here I'm heading into Scarborough Town Centre, and I'd just like to apologise that the recording then wasn't great. I don't have a script for any of these videos, it just comes out of my mind. Here I'm arriving into Scarborough town centre. As this Volvo B70L right eclipse Gemini leaves heading towards Peacehelm Park, we can see another Volvo B70L, this time only half open top rather than fully open top, heading in the other direction towards the spa. Also branded up for the beachcomber in the newer livery with a full blue back rather than a partial blue back, and not displaying any apart from the yellow of the East Yorkshire colours. Anyway, from here, and here's an ordinary East Yorkshire bus. I'll walk to Scarborough railway station and then take the train back home to York. Here I am back at Scarborough, I don't know why I said back. Here I am at Scarborough railway station. Now, because the H43 coastliner service takes absolutely ages, not as long as the Whitby service, it still takes a mighty long time to get between Scarborough and York, though there are many more of them than the Whitby services. I decided just to cheat and get the train. This would be the only train I would take, apart from the cross-country services I would take in the Yorkshire area. This was operated by Class 185, and to be honest, I thought the trains were not too bad, though they were extremely busy. And when I was doing a bit of filming later on at York railway station, I did think all of these services, especially operated by the 185s from Scarborough, were extremely busy. Why don't they just put Class 800 series of trains on the line? I'm not really too sure, since I'm pretty sure they used to. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling once again. I'm getting worse and worse at doing these voiceovers. Here I am, leaving Scarborough railway station. As you can see, it is absolutely massive, but only 2 of the platforms are actually ever well used. These platforms I don't think I've ever seen used before, to be honest with you.
Tickets, please, folks.
I'll take a picture of my ticket and then I'll let them.
Yeah, got a real curve.
Not me, you idiot.
Here I am arriving into Seymour. From here, the Northern Line heads down south towards Filey, and this again operates in competition with both the East Yorkshire Coaster and the Shoreline Sun Cruiser service, though it probably isn't supposed to be competition, and then heads further down towards Bridlington, Cottingley and Hull. However, my Trans-Pennine train will head along to Moulton and York before continuing to Manchester Victoria.
Passengers line the step down from the train onto the platform.
Here I am arriving into Moulton railway station, which you saw earlier was departing Moulton bus station on the coastliner towards Whitby. I thought this railway station, apart from the addition of a massive Asda store right next to it, was actually very nice, and to be honest it looked a little bit unloved from the platform, though I could be wrong, and it doesn't get that many trains considering it looks pretty large. Anyway, it was only one stop now up the line to York, where I disembark and head back to my hotel. Here I am arriving back at York. As I disembark this Trans-Pennine Express train, which will continue on to Leeds and Manchester, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was something a little bit different, along with the rest of the Yorkshire videos, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.